Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The Big Brother house was already tense as the week reached its critical point. Alliances were fragile and trust was in short supply. Players moved carefully through every conversation as whispers of a power shift filled the air. No one expected the night to unfold the way it did. Morgan had been playing a quiet and patient game for weeks. Many saw her as calm and careful rather than bold. That image was shattered in one stunning ceremony that changed the fate of the house. When Vince stood at the podium, few expected the shock that was about to follow. Earlier in the week, Vince had appeared confident in his strategy. He believed he was steering the house through predictable waters. He had selected his initial nominees with the idea that the plan would stay simple and clean. Most of the house accepted the move, even if they were uneasy about the long-term impact. Morgan listened quietly to every conversation. She watched how people shifted their stories from room to room. It became clear to her that this was the moment she had been waiting for. The power was finally within reach. Winning her advantage was not an accident. She had pushed herself hard in the competition, and it paid off when she secured the veto. The look on her face when she won said everything. It was calm on the surface, yet fierce beneath. Many believed she would use the power in the safest way possible. That belief became the greatest mistake of the week. Behind closed doors, she began counting votes and measuring loyalty. She realized that Vince was far more vulnerable than he appeared. As the veto ceremony approached, the house felt divided. Some house guests sensed a disruption was coming, while others felt safe in old plans. Morgan kept her cards close and revealed nothing in public. In private, she tested trust with small questions and careful silence. Several players unknowingly confirmed what she already suspected. The house was ready for a fracture. The only missing piece was the courage to strike. Morgan had that courage, and she knew exactly where to aim. When the veto ceremony began, the air felt heavy. Everyone took their seats and eyes locked onto Morgan. Vince stood nearby with the confidence of someone who believed the night would unfold exactly as expected. Morgan spoke clearly about why she had fought for the power. She said she wanted fairness and truth in the game. At that moment, some players exchanged nervous looks. Then she used the veto to remove one of the nominees. Gasps filled the room as the implications hit instantly. All eyes turned to Vince as he was forced to name a replacement. He hesitated for a moment longer than usual. The house was silent. Then he spoke the name that no one was ready to hear. The renom landed like a thunderstrike. Shock swept across every face in the room. The person he named had been considered untouchable. Some players stared at the floor, while others looked directly at Morgan in disbelief. The power play was complete, and nothing would ever look the same again inside the Big Brother house. The fallout was immediate. Conversations erupted in every corner as alliances scrambled to adjust. Some felt betrayed, while others felt exposed. Vince struggled to regain control of the narrative, but the damage had already spread. His authority had been shaken, and Morgan had become the center of every strategic discussion. People who once dismissed her now realized she was capable of changing the entire game in one move. The house had been flipped, and everyone felt it. Morgan remained calm through the chaos. She did not brag or celebrate loudly. She let the shock speak for itself. In private, she admitted that the move was risky, but necessary. She believed that waiting any longer would only allow stronger players to tighten their grip. By forcing the renom, she shattered the illusion of safety that had protected certain players for weeks. That moment forced everyone to show where they truly stood. Vince faced the harshest reality of the night. His attempt to protect his own game had instead exposed his weakness. House guests questioned his leadership and his ability to read the room. His closest allies felt uneasy, and some openly wondered if sticking with him was still the right choice. The balance of power, which once leaned in his favor, was now hanging in the air with no clear owner. The nominee who replaced the original target struggled to hide the shock. This player had believed they were insulated by deals and quiet promises. Now they were sitting on the block with their future uncertain. The sudden shift forced them to campaign faster and harder than ever before. Trust was no longer a currency they could rely on. Every promise suddenly felt fragile, and every conversation felt loaded with hidden meaning. Elsewhere in the house, other players began quietly aligning themselves with Morgan. They saw her as a potential shield and a rising force. She did not promise safety easily, but she listened well. That alone made her valuable. Some players viewed her as a threat that needed to be stopped soon. Others believed she could help dismantle the larger power structure that had ruled for most of the game. Either way, one truth was undeniable. Morgan was now a central figure. As night settled in the house, the restless remained. Small groups formed and dissolved again. Conversations stretched deep into the early hours as plans were rewritten in real time. Vince moved from room to room, trying to repair relationships, but every step felt heavier than before. Some heard him out, while others nodded politely with no intention of staying loyal. The damage from the Renom was deeper than even he fully understood. Viewers could sense that the season had crossed a major turning point. The move was not just dramatic, but strategic in a way that reshaped the direction of the game. Morgan had proven that quiet players could strike with precision. She did not need chaos to make waves. She created impact with control and timing. That lesson would not be forgotten by those still fighting for the grand prize. As eviction loomed, the tension only increased. Campaigns became aggressive, and some truth bombs exploded in unexpected places. Secrets that had been buried for weeks suddenly surfaced. The Renom had forced honesty into the open, whether players wanted it or not. Morgan watched it all closely and adjusted her position with every new piece of information. Inside the diary room, emotions ran high. Several house guests admitted they felt blindsided and even betrayed. Others confessed that they admired the boldness of the move. Vince himself struggled to process how quickly his week had spiraled beyond his control. He ended the week believing he would solidify his power. Instead, he had handed momentum to someone else entirely. The final days before eviction felt like a countdown to an explosion. Every handshake felt temporary, and every smile felt forced. Morgan remained steady through it all. She understood that power in this game is never permanent. What mattered was how well one could use it in the moment, and she had used hers to full effect. No matter how the vote would fall, the story of the week was already written. Morgan made the move that everyone would talk about long after the season ended. Vince made the Renom that changed his standing forever. The house had been flipped, and there was no going back to how things once were. Big Brother thrives on moments like this. One decision that reshapes everything. One player who steps out of the shadows and into the center of the storm. Morgan did exactly that, and the house will never be the same. The bombshell has landed, and the aftershocks
The Big Brother
are
house
only
was
beginning.
quiet in a way that felt unnatural. Everyone knew something big was coming, but no one could name it out loud. The tension followed every step and every whispered conversation. For weeks, the game had moved with careful control under familiar names. Power had rested in predictable hands. That illusion shattered the moment Morgan secured the veto and placed the entire house on edge. Morgan had never been the loudest voice in the room. She often listened more than she spoke and watched more than she acted. Many house guests believed she was floating safely through the game. They were wrong. Every move she made had been calculated with patience and clarity. Winning the veto gave her the opening she had been quietly waiting for. With that single victory, her position in the house transformed from overlooked to unavoidable. Vince spent most of the week confident in his control of the board. His nominations followed what he believed was a safe and strategic plan. The house accepted it outwardly, even though doubt lived beneath the surface. Morgan kept her reaction neutral, while privately testing loyalty and gathering signs of where the real fractures lived. Each conversation confirmed her growing belief that Vince was standing on unstable ground. As the veto ceremony approached, nerves spread through every room. Some house guests laughed too loudly, while others avoided eye contact entirely. Everyone sensed that the plan was not as locked as it once seemed. Morgan took her seat with steady posture and calm focus. Vince stood near the podium with a confidence that bordered on comfort. That comfort was about to vanish. When Morgan stood to speak, the room went silent. She explained that the veto represented power and responsibility. She said she had listened closely to the house and to her instincts. Then she used the veto and removed one of the original nominees from the block. Shock traveled through the room instantly. No one moved. No one spoke. The rules demanded a replacement, and all eyes turned to Vince. For several long seconds, he hesitated. His expression betrayed confusion and pressure in equal measure. The house waited as the moment stretched into something heavy. Then he named the replacement nominee, and with that single choice, the game split open. Gasps filled the room and disbelief washed over nearly every face. The person he selected had been considered protected by multiple layers of trust. That trust collapsed in one breath. Morgan did not react visibly. She remained still as the impact of her move echoed through the house. The nomination reshaped every alliance and forced players into immediate survival mode. Some felt betrayed, and others felt awakened. Vince looked shaken as he realized how deeply his authority had been challenged. The room cleared quickly after the ceremony as whispers erupted behind every closed door. Conversations multiplied at a frantic pace. Players rushed to secure safety and rewrite broken deals. Some accused Vince of recklessness, while others blamed Morgan for destabilizing the weak. She accepted neither title publicly. In private, she admitted that the move was dangerous but necessary. She believed waiting any longer would have cost her the chance to control her own fate. The new nominees struggled to process what had happened. Only hours before, they felt untouchable. Now they were facing eviction with limited time to recover. Their campaign began immediately, as they moved room to room seeking revived promises and new deals. Every response felt uncertain. Every agreement felt fragile. The game no longer followed a smooth script. Vince worked hard to regain control, but each conversation revealed how far his influence had slipped. His closest allies questioned his instincts, and some began quietly considering alternatives. The Renom had not only endangered one player, but also exposed Vince as vulnerable. The house no longer saw him as the center of stability. That shift altered everything. Morgan became the silent focus of the game. Some players approached her with cautious respect, while others spoke her name as a warning. She did not seek attention, but it found her everywhere. The move defined her as a serious contender and reshaped how everyone valued her presence. She listened to each new offer and measured every word carefully. Late into the night, the house remained restless. Lights stayed on in small groups as strategy sessions unfolded in every corner. Truths that had stayed hidden began to surface. Old promises were questioned. New lines were drawn. Every player realized that survival now depended on bold decisions rather than comfort. Inside the diary room, emotions poured out. Some house guests admitted fear, while others admitted admiration. A few confessed regret for underestimating Morgan. Vince struggled with frustration as he replayed the ceremony in his mind. He knew the move would follow him for the rest of the season. As the days moved closer to eviction, the tension only intensified. Campaigns became sharper and loyalties shifted with each new conversation. Morgan remained composed through every change. She understood that power in Big Brother is temporary, but impact is permanent. Her single move had rewritten the story of the season. No matter who would ultimately leave the house that week, one truth was already locked. The game had entered a new chapter. Morgan had stepped fully into the spotlight, and Vince had felt the full weight of a decision that shocked the entire house. Big Brother lives for moments like this. One bold play that changes everything. One unexpected name that flips the board. Morgan delivered that moment, and the house will never return to what it once was. The bombshell has landed, and the aftershocks are still moving through every wall.